Well, thank you for being here on Crew Call with us. And one of my dearest friends ever, Bradley McIlrath, who is on the other side of the United States of America from us. You're on the West Coast now as a design product development consultant extraordinaire. That is the official title of who you are. So thank you for joining us, B. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm going to update my LinkedIn title to that exactly. So
it's perfect.
So Bradley, what are you doing out on the West Coast? What is going on out there?
Yeah, well, so I'm in Seattle, which obviously was kind of the origination of everything. So we've been kind of dealing with lockdown for a little longer. I live right in South Lake Union, so it's the heart of the Amazon campus. So it's been kind of eerie because I'm used to looking out and seeing, people, food trucks, people walking on their lunch, dogs, traffic. It's made it easier to go to the store in the afternoon and get out at rush hour. But yeah, so it's been kind of just interesting being in Seattle, kind of going through this. For me, this is probably the longest I have not traveled. Being home for almost 2 months, not traveling, has been kind of crazy, but otherwise things are good. I'm healthy and thankful for that. So
that is good. How's your mom and your grandfather?
Yeah, they're doing well. It's all about wearing those masks and keeping healthy and, staying safe, right? So it hasn't been the most exciting time, but I think I've been trying some new things over the last couple weeks and learning to cook. So that's been fun.
Oh, what's your go-to now? What's your go-to recipe now?
I try to switch it up. I've become like a big salmon fan and I'm trying different marinades. So that's been fun.
Oh.
Yeah. But I do have like a salmon puff pastry recipe for you guys that I'll share later.
Actually, we will share that. The Bradley's puff pastry.
Right. It's pretty good.
I know, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Very buttery and delicious. But
what you want.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just, keeping going with work, communicating with factories overseas, and just kind of trying not to get too bogged down by kind of all the retail apocalypse threats. And but it's interesting time with fashion, with apparel and product. Factories, people are canceling orders, retailers are changing strategies. And for me, I work 6 months to a year, if not a year and a half out on most projects. But we are seeing that ripple effect kind of go through that industry and how things are going to change over the next couple months. But I think the good thing is for creatives, artists, designers, after this clears, like people are going to want fresh perspectives, they're going to want newness, they're going to want to be able to think about things differently. So I think that's a really exciting thing to look forward to look towards the light at the end of the tunnel, and keep things moving. So
when you're talking about factories, are you talking about, are you still working with Asia factories in India? Because India is now shut down. So how is that affecting kind of movement for the stuff that you're working on, but even friends that that are in the business?
Right. Yeah, I think people have switched so much to kind of controlling their strategies of their pack and hold. A lot of retailers are looking at that, how they can take evergreen product and kind of shift it around, and then kind of repurpose things. So I think there's a lot of time spent with that. A lot of the factory management is still working in different ways with the work from home, so they're able to communicate. I'm obviously working more on sample development, designs. So factories have been, talking about that. But it also impacts timelines because your material suppliers have been closed, or there's a delay from that, or they're maybe backlogged in filling orders versus being able to make sample yardage or sample product. But I think people are still eager to make product and work with new business relationships. So that's been positive and optimistic.
Have you had to make new relationships yourself with these different vendors, or did you have to change your communication process at all to reach them?
Not really, because I think with overseas, it's always all about, email and forms and communication through digital presence. I think what's changing now is more, maybe because of mail and kind of timelines, you want to look at things digitally. So digital sample reviews, maybe instead of seeing something and touching and feeling it before you go into a product development, we're going to kind of review it digitally. And I think that's a great thing that's going to actually trickle down into how we develop product and how people are comfortable with doing line reviews over Zoom meetings. Or, I was on a call this morning with WWD and First Insight, which is based in Pittsburgh. So they were talking about how, their customers using their systems to test and learn, and how they can, instead of having everyone, flag their hands up, they can use these systems to kind of pull right from these line reviews, which is, I think, a great tactic going forward. So it opens up that opportunity for a lot of companies and how you work and your workflow.
Is it hard though with color? Because everybody's monitors are different, calibrated differently, and then there's fabric and touch and stuff like that. I mean, will there ever be this moment where you don't have to be there to approve things?
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge. And my other friends that are working kind of improving things right now, I think it's color is always tough. I think fit and construction is always tough. Basically because there's perceptions of the factory's way versus the customer way, and maybe just something you prefer, personal preference. I think when you get into materials handling, colors, like you're talking about, I mean, a lot of people like to approve based on formulas or based on reads, but it's very hard to do that. And even when you're in person, that's how they are doing approvals, is they're reading it and getting data points about how it relates to the color formula. But when you're mixing materials and you have different contents, it's never going to be perfect. So I think we're still a ways away from that. But eventually that would be a nice way to expedite the process for sure.
One of the things that you're excellent at, one of the many things, is athletic outdoor apparel. And thinking about online or retailers and how much is purchased in retail, brick and mortar versus online, those splits are not a 50-50 split. In fact, it's more like 20-80 buying online versus buying in brick and mortar. Are you having conversations about the change in people purchasing more and not worrying so much about fit, or buying 2 more sizes and bringing, you know what I mean? I think the question is what's this going to do to retail shop after we get out of all this?
Yeah, and I think it's a mix of things. Like my former role, I was at Meijer, which is a Midwest grocer similar to Target. And, they're not allowed to advertise any non-essential items in Michigan right now. And so they kind of, rolled that out to other states as well. But that changes their strategy, that everything becomes an ad and dark, promotions. But other companies, I think, or brands are going more DTC, which will be interesting to see that shift, to see how they can capitalize on those sales more.
When you say dark promotion, does that mean that it's just when you get inside, kind of like the Disney effect, where it's like, okay, now it's 20% off that apparel?
Right,
Okay.
but there's no like raw in, right, that you're reading your weekly circular. And to that point, I mean, that company is also 100% brick and mortar, which, they have a healthy business, and I hope they're still doing well. But I just don't know also that people are really shopping for clothes right now. I think if anything, what I'll be interested to see and what I'm kind of tracking is what the shift from athleisure, athletic apparel to like more true loungewear or work from home. Is this a new category?
Right.
Seen pop up in a lot of brands advertising, right? Your work from home looks. And, I personally don't want to wear gym clothes all day because they're comfortable, but they're not, it's not breathable all the time and not as nice as like a soft tee and a cozy short. So I think it'll be interesting to see what that kind of shifts from consumers. But I think also price point and spending consumer behavior going forward. Like, will people still want value, fast fashion, or will they want to pay more for something that's going to last a little longer and be better quality? I know some brands, I think Rag & Bone sent out an Instagram post that they were reducing their prices right on their clothes, which I got excited, and I went to the website, and that reduction wasn't really what I was expecting.
I can't believe you just said that, because that's I was like, and Rag and Bone, I'm not joking.
Right? Yeah, I know. I was all excited. I'm like, oh, I might buy something new, and then I was like, well, that's not really a discount. So, but for them it is, sure. But how do you right size that and kind of change that approach, right?
How is, when you look at that, when you're talking with your friends, because you know so many people in the industry, and you're probably all talking about like what is happening right now, how do you stay inspired to continue to design when no one's buying? I mean, when you're talking about fresh approach and fresh look, I mean, what are you thinking about to offer to the market?
Right. Well, I mean, for me, I think about more minimalism or versatility, right? Things that can be more timeless, or maybe things that can be worn multiple ways. Maybe seeing some of that backing away from that super fast trend also, and maybe something that can live a longer life cycle in the future. I think what the challenge will be is that as these companies are packing and hold, like I said, so PVH, right, which is mainly big brands, Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, they're talking about what they could pack and hold to kind of like bring back next season or next year this time, whether that's spring, summer trend merchandise, or that is their core basics. But what will that do to the trend cycle also? And if you have multiple retailers building that up, or brands, they're kind of like shifting that trend. I think that's kind of interesting. And that also does put future development, right? So if I was working right now on summer for 2021, for my brand is packing and holding, we may not have as much development and as many buys. And that's where you kind of get into that ripple effect about the industry and how this affects, those economies in Asia, and paying factory wages and what those cancellations do. And a lot of retailers have kind of been in that spotlight. But a lot of them, H&M, Primark, are kind of pulling through, which is good. But there's a bigger ripple effect than I think people realize too. So,
we're coming up on, Fashion Week is
September, right?
here at some point, you know what I mean? And it's like, what do you think have you heard anything about what's going to happen when you talk about trend, and you're working on these really long life cycles?
right.
And that's how retail is anyhow. I mean, you're always working for that. It's like, we've already had holiday. We're already into Valentine's Day of next year and what that looks like. But in terms of fashion and thinking about that, if companies are packing and holding, question is if you have something run now and they're packing, holding it and not selling it, should it be deeply discounted because it's been like sitting in a warehouse for 6 months before?
Sure. Yeah, the shelf life, right, of the product. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for, Nordstrom Rack, Marshalls, TJ Maxx, Macy's Backstage, those companies or those divisions to kind of capitalize on some of this as well. But I think a lot of brands may not even want to bring those goods in. So then you get into a whole nother channel where there's resale in the country of production or in Asia, Europe markets or Asia markets, which is also hard because, sizing is different and all of those things to kind of take into account. And then there's destruction of clothes, right? And destruction of product, which a lot of companies might burn or destroy products so they don't have to resell it and they take that loss. So unfortunately, I think with so much eco focus right now that won't be the focus. I think it'll be people trying to figure out how to capitalize on that market. But personally, I know I haven't bought anything new aside from maybe a few books in the last 2 months, right? And food. So lots of food, but which now I'll need to buy new clothes, I guess, when this is over, because I won't fit in any of my old clothes. So because I've been eating a lot.
What's all that cooking you're doing too?
Yeah,
Taste
yeah,
testing.
yeah. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
so I think it's a, interesting industry. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens and as we come out of this and how things shift around.
Mhm.
Um, but it's optimistic, I believe, though. Yeah.
You worked at Dick's for a while
Yep.
uh, in Pittsburgh, and have you talked to anybody? Because it's they have you can order online and then pick it up at the curb. You're not allowed in, but
BOPIS, but now I guess it's BOPIC. I don't know. That doesn't sound good, but it's a new acronym that we didn't like before. But buy online, pick up on the curb, or
yeah,
but now I haven't really talked to them much. I mean, it seems like they're supporting their sales and their channels. I think a lot of retailers have used that strategy to turn, retail locations into dark stores, those dark stores as fulfillment centers,
mhm,
which I think there was already kind of like a big shift of that anyways, of how they can move product. But I think what else we'll kind of see and what'll be interesting for not just apparel, but for all consumer products will be how we see like manufacturing shift and maybe a new focus on made in the USA, what opportunities that brings. I know a friend of mine has been brokering safety products and masks and things, and a lot of companies want things that are made in the USA, um, but those goods either don't exist or they exist from one certain manufacturer, and that's specific to that category. But I mean, a lot of apparel, right, brands are not manufactured here. If they are, they're more of a higher price point. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that changes, especially with the connotations there have been about certain countries, and how do we move forward as a supply chain and as a sourcing network, and what does that look like to the consumer's reaction too.
And do you think, we're talking about like this is the first wave and there could be a second and third wave of the virus, but do you see retail really opening and starting back up again? Or do you think it's going to be like a year and a half process until, or if ever, that it goes back to normal and how we know it?
I know, I mean, for example, like Simon's opening up, there's about 49 stores across, or malls across Georgia and South Carolina, I think this weekend, with limited hours that are changing. So I think it'll be interesting to see what that traffic looks like. I think, personally, I think people, I was at the grocery store on Friday and there was a ton of people in there and I was trying to get in and get out, but, I always like my personal space, but now more than ever, I think people are going to be more sensitive about personal space and being in a crowded environment, right?
Right.
Or being around a lot of people. I hope that the stores do open soon. I think um, people are missing that kind of social aspect, right? They're missing that engagement aspect. And I think, as much as online is still popular, I mean, you still want to be able to try things on, and and it gives you, it's something to do and it's an experience. So I hope it'll go back to normal. Yeah. But I think maybe we'll see, I think maybe what we'll see, maybe the change become is more of what they're stocking in stores or how
Mhm.
stores are stocked, how things are released. But I think, there's some retailers that have also limited returns right now on clothing or consumer items. So yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there as well.
we have a couple of people that we've talked to that they all were furloughed. So you saw you saw just companies, there's a very large retailer here in Pittsburgh furloughed everybody. Like
Mhm.
they just downsized and furloughed. Are you seeing that with a lot of your friends in retail as well, or what's the sentiment out there?
Yeah, more through my network on LinkedIn, I've seen a lot of people that are furloughed. And I think that's, I mean, for me, I'm glad I'm not in retail right now, I guess, because I feel like that there's that added stress. And, I worked for Sports Authority, which went through bankruptcy in 2016. So I don't know if I'd have bad flashbacks or experience, but I think it's hard for people to, go through that. I think it's better to have at least that security that you're, depending on what company you're working for, retailer you're working for, that things will open back up and things will go back to business. I think more of the worrisome players or people that might be forced into bankruptcy or are missing so many sales. I mean, JCPenney, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Jill Soltau. I really love what they're doing and how they're rebranding and how she's revamping their stores and catering to their customer. And they were on such a great trajectory. And then this happened. And, hopefully it doesn't push them too far. But I think companies like that really have a great opportunity, are these missed sales going to impact them, and how is that going to change their future, and when the furlough ends, and who they bring back. Yeah.
It's a crazy shift. Now you have the House of Ike. And so what are you working on? Do you have any projects that you're working on just personally that you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Things that you want to send samples?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Any requests, special requests?
Yes, actually.
Anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm doing some consulting right now, more like factory scouting, in looking into different markets right now. So nothing I can really talk about too much there. I think what's been kind of exciting is doing some new projects, apparel related. And for me, kind of taking advantage of this time to see what I can learn, right, and what I can do differently. So when I approached that project, I learned, new software. It's not really new, but it's new to me, but PicMonkey, which was really fun to kind of play around with, and allows you to, do these different features and cut images out differently and arrange, collage. And so I think for me, when I'm trying to keep myself going during this time, is approaching projects maybe a little differently, or trying to put a different flair on it, so that I can learn something and also deliver something fresh to the customer as well. So that's been pretty fun for me.
Great.
Yeah, and I feel like just kind of keeps it fresh again and gives a new perspective all around.
So if you're looking for trend, if you were to forecast out for next spring, what do you think the next big round will be? I know you talked a little bit about convertibles is what I would talk in terms of apparel, but what do you think do you think it'll be floral? Florals are always fresh for.
Floral for spring?
Floral for spring, something new?
For next year, I guess that's hard. I mean, I don't know. I think when you look at fashion, I think fashion puts out spring, resort or spring in January, February, right? In most markets in the US, you're not wearing capris or short sleeve shirts, or, you want something fresh, but you may want something more seasonal. So I think that might change how some retailers approach. So I think that would be my trend guidance, would be to push more like climate appropriate, direct in season. I think that'll kind of change how things are set. I know next year, I mean, I guess, you think about sentiment, right? And I don't know that people are really going to want to remember this time. But I think there's going to be, I would say, for 2021, there's more playful, there's more uplifting, spiritual, maybe positive things, and maybe more fun pieces, prints, patterns, fun florals, unexpected maybe, that you would see coming up, because people wanted to kind of really have that fresh perspective. They don't want to remember last year. Maybe they will. I mean, I think there's been a lot of positive stories coming out of this, and a lot of time people are spending together, a lot of new experiences, a lot of new recipes that we're creating. Although I don't know if I'll ever cook again after this is over.
It's a good project.
From Miami, hot dogs.
Right. Oh God. Yeah.
Salmon and
Plus pastries.
Yeah. Next time you come to visit, you will get a better meal. I promise. How about that?
Well, that's good. I'm really glad about that. I'm pretty excited about that. Although our trip that we were coming that way just was canceled, so I'm so sad.
That's a bummer, right? Where's the first place you guys want to go when this is over? Like, where do you want to travel to, or what do you want to do?
New Mexico. And depending upon what happens, I mean, I think that'll be the first, because our trip to Iceland got
Hmm.
canceled. But New Mexico to go see Ghost Ranch
All right. Oh, great.
and hang out with
Nice.
with that whole kind of moment, I think will be really refreshing for my soul.
Yeah.
What about you,
I-
Court?
I mean, I've kind of been in the mood to go to like a beach and just like relax. I know like going from relaxation to relaxation, but just to kind of like clear the air and get out in the fresh air, I think would be great. See some sand and the ocean.
Right.
So
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it'd be nice to be able to move around. I honestly haven't gone outside at all. I'm blessed that we have a lot of windows and I can see water. So I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm kind of outside, but
Yep.
it'd be nice to like be able to run. We do have a new addition to our house. We have a treadmill in our living room now.
Oh, there you go. That's nice.
Very nice.
Look
piece
out the
of
window.
right?
Yeah.
So that's been something new we added, but because the gym's closed and we got to stay kind of healthy, right? So
Are you having everything delivered? All your food delivered, or
we've done that a bit, but I think the hardest thing and probably the biggest thing I've learned is that Instacart may not be the best shopper selection for produce. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard because I guess produce is personal, right? You can quote me on that, but you want to pick out like the
That's
right.
such a nice way of saying it.
t-shirt? Produce is personal.
That is great. That's your new. That's your new project.
I'm writing it down right now.
Yeah, please.
Produce
Oh
is
my God,
personal.
I love it.
But it is. So you get, someone picking out your produce for you. And I watched someone shopping for someone else the other day in the grocery store. And I watched how she went through she kind of grabbed the first cabbage. So I was like, really? And she looked it over and then put it in the thing and it looked fine. But, for me, I got to have, kind of pick through there, make sure it's the right one. But yeah, having some delivery, but I still, it's hard to, I think it's hard to kind of figure things out. I guess maybe it's part of the artist, the creative in me that I don't want to plan everything unless it's something specific I want to make. So you kind of like ideate your meals, your shopping when you're in the store or what you really want. So
That's awesome. I love that.
Well, I love that. Produce is personal. You heard it
There
here.
it is. That's the new.
first.
Exactly.
It is. I love it.
Hey, thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate
Great
it.
seeing your face.
It looks so good. I'm so jealous.
The lighting.
No,
Lighting.
looks great. Looks fantastic.
Tell your whole family I said hi, and give everybody my love.
Yeah, next time I'm in Pittsburgh, I hope to see you guys. It'd be great to get together. And thanks for including me in this. And I enjoy watching them every day. So keep it up.
Thanks.
Thank
How's it
you.
going?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Bye.